The main view screen displayed what could only be described as a kaleidoscope in motion, a massive vessel that seemed to constantly shift and reform. Its outer hull comprised of interlocking geometric patterns that pulsed with internal light. The object didn't appear to have a front or back, no visible propulsion systems or weapons arrays. It defied every classification in Earth's defense database. "Magnify Sector 3, Elena ordered, pointing to a portion of the ship that seemed more stable than the rest. The image zoomed in, revealing intricate patterns that reminded her of circuit boards, or perhaps a written language. Lieutenant Rivera was already running it through the translation matrix, but the system returned only confusion. "Distance to Earth?" Elena asked, her implant feeding her the data even as Captain Okereke answered. 400 million kilometers in closing. At current velocity, it will reach Earth orbit in approximately 6 hours. Dr. Chen looked up from his console, his expression grave. "Commander, the defense grid satellites are reporting unusual energy readings. The space surrounding the vessel is fluctuating somehow. It's as if the laws of physics are being locally rewritten." Elena felt a chill run down her spine. Humanity had prepared for first contact scenarios involving beings with superior technology, but not for beings who could manipulate reality itself. The neural link fed her status reports from defense platforms across the solar system, all operational, all ready, but would they be effective against something like this? "Begin evacuation protocols for orbital stations," she said quietly. "Priority personnel only to remain on stations, and wake the Orbital Defense Council." That last order caused a visible ripple of tension through the bridge crew. The ODC, 12 of Earth's most brilliant military strategists and xenopsychologists, were only to be awakened for imminent threats of planetary scale. "Ma'am," Rivera spoke up, his voice hesitant. "I'm detecting what might be a communication attempt. It's not on any frequency we use. It's riding on the quantum field itself." Elena straightened in her command chair. "Can we respond on the same channel?" "Theoretically," Dr. Chen interjected. "The QFC-Lumen system was still in testing, but we could attempt to route through the experimental array at Luna Base." "Do it," Elena ordered. First contact could still be peaceful, despite the ominous approach. Humanity had survived countless near-extinction events throughout its history. Asteroid impacts, climate shifts, pandemics, and had emerged stronger each time. Their defense systems reflected that evolutionary resilience, no single point of failure, no centralized control that could be disabled with one strike. As the bridge crew worked frantically to establish communication, Elena accessed the defense grid's primary systems through her neural link. Thousands of defense platforms, from kinetic kill vehicles to energy projectors, formed a protective web around Earth and its colonies. The system had been designed with redundancy at its core. Even if 90% of the network were somehow destroyed, the remaining 10 would reconfigure to maintain minimum defensive coverage. "Commander," Rivera called out, his expression shifting from concentration to confusion. "I'm receiving. I think it's an answer, but it doesn't make sense." The main screen changed, displaying a single phrase in glowing blue text. "Prove your worth." Elena's hand froze above the console. The implications were clear. This wasn't just first contact. It was a test, and humanity's survival might depend on passing it. The sensation of 2,000 minds connecting simultaneously was unlike anything Elena had experienced in training simulations. Colors seemed more vivid, sounds sharper, and time itself appeared to slow as her consciousness expanded beyond the confines of her own skull. Through the neural network, she could feel the fear, determination, and curiosity of defense specialists from Beijing to Buenos Aires, from lunar outposts to the Martian colonies. "Stabilizing neural patterns," Dr. Chen announced, his voice sounding distant despite his proximity. "Hive coherence at 73% and climbing." Elena closed her eyes, allowing the flood of external consciousness to wash over her. Years of psychological conditioning had prepared the defense operators for this moment. the delicate balance between shared awareness and individual identity. Through their collective senses, Elena could now perceive the alien vessel from multiple perspectives simultaneously: optical feeds from satellites, gravitational distortion measurements, radiation analysis, and quantum field fluctuations all merged into a single comprehensive understanding. "There," whispered a voice in the hive, belonging to Dr. Fatima Abazi at the Lagos Defense Center. "The pattern changes aren't random. They're sequential. Like speech," completed another consciousness, a young ensign from the asteroid belt outposts. "The entire ship is a communication device." Through the hive, Elena directed the defense grid sensors to focus on the pattern changes, analyzing them as a form of language rather than tactical movements. The collective intelligence of 2,000 specialists reinterpreted the data in real time, finding order in what had seemed like chaos. "It's beautiful," someone whispered through the connection, and Elena found herself agreeing. The vessel's transformations followed mathematical principles of stunning complexity, fractal patterns that seemed to encode information in their very structure. Captain Okarake, not connected to the hive, watched Elena with concern. "Commander, are you still with us?" Elena opened her eyes, momentarily disoriented by the dual awareness of her physical surroundings and the expanded consciousness of the hive. "We need to respond in kind," she said, her voice carrying the weight of collective decision. "The vessel isn't just communicating through signals. Its entire existence is the message." Through the neural network, ideas flowed like water: suggestions, theories, potential responses. Elena filtered them instinctively, drawing on the specialized knowledge of xenolinguists, mathematicians, and theoretical physicists within the hive. A consensus emerged, not through formal voting but through a natural convergence of thought. "Reconfigure defense platforms in Section 12 through 27, Elena ordered. "Arrange them according to the prime number sequence Dr. Kazuo is calculating." The order might have seemed nonsensical to anyone outside the hive, but within the shared consciousness, the strategy was clear. Earth would respond to the alien communication by arranging its own defense grid into meaningful patterns, a demonstration of both intelligence and control over their technology. As the defense platforms began their carefully choreographed movement, Elena felt a ripple of something new through the hive, a presence observing their collective consciousness. The alien vessel had somehow detected the neural network and was curious. "They're scanning the hive," Dr. Chen said, alarm evident in his voice. "Unknown energy signature penetrating our firewalls." Before Elena could order countermeasures, the presence withdrew, but not before leaving something behind. A sensation of recognition that resonated through the connected minds. The alien intelligence had found what it was looking for. Through the hive, a collective realization dawned. This wasn't just first contact with another species. It was first contact between fundamentally different forms of consciousness. The bridge fell silent as the reality of what had just happened sank in. 17 lives extinguished in an instant. Through the hive mind, Elena felt their absence like phantom limbs. Connections suddenly severed, leaving only echoing emptiness where their consciousnesses had been. "Targeting solutions acquired," Captain Okarake reported, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. "Kinetic platforms ready to fire. Energy projectors at full charge." The defense grid's response would be devastating. Over 300 weapons platforms with clear firing lines, enough firepower to vaporize a small moon. Yet something held Elena back from giving the full assault order. Through the collective consciousness of the hive, she sensed uncertainty, a growing suspicion that they were missing something crucial. "Execute targeted response only," she ordered. "Disable, don't destroy." The grid came alive, particle beams lancing out from orbital platforms positioned around Mars' orbit. The precision was surgical, each beam targeting what sensor analysis suggested might be propulsion or weapon systems. The resulting explosion temporarily blinded optical sensors, forcing the defense grid to switch to gravitational and radiation imaging. When visibility returned, the alien vessel remained intact, but had ceased its approach. A portion of its shifting exterior had stabilized into a rigid, crystalline structure. "It's adapting," murmured Dr. Chen, monitoring the hive mind's collective analysis, reconfiguring in response to our attack vectors. Through the neural network, Elena received damage assessments, tactical suggestions, and probability models simultaneously. The young lieutenant from Mars, Specialist Zhang Wei, according to the neural tag accompanying his thoughts, was particularly insistent, his theory rising above the background hum of the collective consciousness. "Commander," he communicated directly through the hive, "the attack pattern wasn't random. The beam struck precisely 17 milliseconds after our defense platforms began movement. The timing suggests predictive analysis rather than aggression." Elena focused on his reasoning, allowing his thought pattern to expand within the shared consciousness. Zhang's background in game theory and tactical simulation gave weight to his perspective. "They predicted exactly how we would arrange our defense grid," Zhang continued, sharing mathematical models through the neural link. "They fired at the only location that would produce a measurable response without triggering full retaliation protocols. They're testing our restraint," Elena realized, the thought rippling through the hive mind and gathering consensus. "Measuring our response thresholds." The implications were staggering. If Zhang was correct, the aliens hadn't committed an act of war. They had conducted a precisely calculated experiment. The destruction of Monitoring Station Gamma, while tragic, had been chosen specifically because it would cause loss of life without triggering automatic maximum response protocols. "Lieutenant Rivera," Elena said, turning to the communications specialist, "prepare a new approach. No standard first contact packages." Rivera looked up, confusion evident on his face. "What should we send instead, Commander?" "Game theory," Elena replied, the idea solidifying as the hive mind processed it collectively. "Mathematical sequences that demonstrate understanding of strategic interaction. Show them we recognize what they're doing." Through the neural network, mathematicians and game theorists began constructing the message. A sequence of prime numbers followed by the Fibonacci sequence, then transitioning into more complex game theory principles, the prisoner's dilemma, Nash equilibrium, and finally, a mathematical representation of progressive trust-building strategies. As the message transmitted toward the alien vessel, the hive mind collectively held its breath. They had recognized the game. Now it was time to show they could play it. The communication breakthrough came during the 23rd exchange. The alien vessel had repositioned itself into what the hive mind collectively recognized as a mathematical representation of the prisoner's dilemma, a game theory scenario where two entities must decide whether to cooperate or betray without knowing the other's choice. "They're testing our understanding of cooperative strategies," Elena explained to the increasingly bewildered World Security Council members who had been patched into the command center. "This isn't just communication, it's negotiation." Through the hive mind, Elena directed the defense grid to reconfigure into a pattern representing the optimal solution: mutual cooperation for maximum shared benefit. The platforms moved with perfect precision, their formation visible from Earth as a constellation of moving lights. The alien vessel responded by shifting into a new configuration, this one representing the iterated prisoner's dilemma, where the game is played repeatedly with memory of previous rounds. It was a mathematical way of asking, can we trust each other over time? They're asking if we can maintain cooperation across multiple interactions. Dr. Chen translated for those not connected to the hive. They want to know if humans keep their word. Elena felt a rush of perspectives from the hive mind. Historical analyses, psychological profiles, philosophical debates about human trustworthiness. The collective consciousness distilled centuries of human thought on cooperation and trust into a single unified understanding. "Show them our history," Elena directed. "All of it, the wars, the peace treaties, the alliances, the betrayals. Show them how we've learned." Lieutenant Rivera looked alarmed. "Commander, revealing our conflicts might be interpreted as..." As honesty, Elena finished. They want to know if we can be trusted. The answer isn't that we're perfect. It's that we understand our imperfections. Through the hive mind, Earth's defense grid began a complex dance, the platforms arranging and rearranging themselves in patterns that told humanity's story. From tribal conflicts to world wars, from the formation of the United Nations to the solar system accords that had finally united Earth's nations. The mathematical representation showed not just cooperation, but the hard-won understanding of its value. "They're responding," Captain Okarik announced, as the alien vessel began to pulse with new patterns of light. The ship's geometry simplified, stabilizing into a more recognizable form, still alien, but with clear sections that might correspond to command, propulsion, and communication systems. Through the hive, Elena felt a collective intake of breath as the first conventional transmission arrived. The message, translated through the defense grid's AI, was elegantly simple. "Worthy players found." "They respect us," whispered someone through the neural network, the thought tinged with wonder. "No," Elena corrected, understanding flowing through the collective consciousness. "They're relieved. They've been searching for someone who thinks like they do." The next transmission confirmed her insight. "Many find. Few understand. Fewer play well." Lieutenant Rivera's eyes widened as he processed the linguistic implications. "Commander, I think they've met other species before, and not all encounters went well." The alien vessel moved again, taking up a stable orbit near Jupiter, a respectful distance that acknowledged Earth's defensive boundaries while remaining close enough for continued communication. Its next transmission came as both mathematical equations and recognizable language. "Game continues. More complex rules now. Winner gains knowledge. Loser remains unchanged." Through the hive mind, Elena felt the weight of the moment. This wasn't just first contact anymore. It was an invitation to a cosmic competition with stakes she couldn't yet comprehend. "Tell them," she said, her decision backed by the collective will of the hive, "that humanity accepts the challenge." The challenger's avatar materialized in the command center's holographic display, a shifting geometric form that seemed to constantly rebuild itself, occasionally resembling human features before dissolving back into abstract patterns. Its voice came not from the hologram, but directly through the neural link, bypassing traditional audio entirely. "Your species distributes thought," it observed, the concept translated imperfectly through the hive mind. "Most develop singular consciousness nodes, centralized, vulnerable." Elena felt the collective curiosity of 2,000 minds focused on this revelation. "You've encountered others who connect their minds?" she asked, serving as spokesperson for the collective. "Many achieve technological telepathy," the challenger confirmed. "Few implement distributed networks. Fewer still retain individual identity within connection." The implications rippled through the hive mind. Humanity's approach to neural networking, preserving individual consciousness while enabling collective thought, was apparently rare among spacefaring civilizations. What they had considered an experimental defense mechanism was, in fact, an evolutionary advantage. "How many civilizations have you challenged?" Dr. Chen asked, his scientific curiosity evident through the neural link. The response came as a mathematical formula rather than a number, a complex equation that Dr. Imani from the African Union Space Center quickly recognized as describing expansion through both time and space. "They've been doing this for millions of years," she translated through the hive. "Across multiple galaxies." Elena sensed anxiety spreading through the neural network as the implications became clear. The Challenger civilization wasn't just technologically advanced. They were ancient beyond comprehension, with experience encountering thousands of different species. "What happens to civilizations that fail your challenges?" Elena asked, voicing the collective concern. The Challenger's avatar pulsed briefly before responding. "Failure has gradients. Most remain planetary. Some achieve limited system presence. Few earn galactic recognition. Through the hive mind came understanding. This wasn't a pass/fail test with extinction as the consequence. It was more like an evaluation that determined a civilization's status in some cosmic hierarchy. "And what is the nature of the challenge you propose?" Elena asked, even as the World Security Council representatives urgently signaled for a private consultation. "Information exchange," the challenger replied. "Access to portion of your data network. Offer technological insight in return." The request sent immediate alarm through both the hive mind and the conventional chain of command. Allowing an unknown entity access to Earth's information systems violated every security protocol established since the digital wars of the 2040s. "What specific information interests you?" Elena asked, buying time as the hive mind rapidly assessed potential risks and safeguards. "Art, music, fiction, games." The challenger's avatar shifted into a form resembling a question mark. "Purpose of creating that which has no practical function." Elena felt a wave of surprise through the collective consciousness, followed by something unexpected: amusement. Of all the valuable information Earth possessed, scientific discoveries, technological innovations, military capabilities, the challenger was most interested in human creativity. Through the hive mind, a consensus formed with remarkable speed. The risk seemed manageable, the potential reward substantial. Beyond the promised technological insights, there was something intriguing about an advanced civilization that valued art and creativity. Elena put it to a formal vote through the neural network, a simple binary choice broadcast to all 2,000 connected minds. The result returned almost instantly: 1,876 in favor, 124 against. "We accept your proposal," Elena announced, feeling the weight of collective decision-making behind her words. "We will prepare a secure information exchange protocol." The challenger's avatar expanded briefly before contracting into a tight, complex knot of light. "The true challenge begins," it communicated. "Choose your data carefully. What you share reveals who you are." The entity moved through Earth's cultural databases like water flowing through a complex network of channels, absorbing information at rates that made even the defense grid's quantum processors struggle to keep pace. Following the young hacker's insight, Elena had directed the hive to create a guided path through humanity's creative achievements, a curated tour of art, music, literature, and games spanning from ancient cave paintings to the latest virtual reality symphonies. "It's showing preferences," Lieutenant Rivera noted, tracking the entity's movement patterns, lingering longer on certain types of data. Through the hive mind, Elena could feel the collective analysis of these preferences emerging. The entity spent more time with jazz than classical music, more time with abstract expressionism than Renaissance art, more time with interactive narratives than linear stories. It seemed particularly fascinated by improvisational forms, creative expressions that emerged spontaneously rather than following rigid structures. "It's learning about our adaptability," Dr. Chen suggested, his thoughts rippling through the neural network. "How we create within constraints, how we innovate when faced with limitations." The entity paused unexpectedly while exploring the history of games, its processes completely halting as it encountered the ancient game of Go. Through the monitoring systems, Elena could sense its processing power redirecting, intensifying, as it analyzed the deceptively simple board game with its near-infinite strategic possibilities. "It's running simulations," observed the young Legos hacker. Adebayo was his name, Elena recalled from the neural tag. "Millions of them." Testing game theories against historical tournament data, the entity remained fixated on Go for nearly 17 minutes, an eternity given its processing speed. When it finally moved on, its behavior pattern had subtly changed. It began actively seeking out paradoxes, puzzles, and examples of lateral thinking throughout human history. "I think we passed some kind of test," Captain Okarik suggested, watching the monitoring displays with growing fascination. Elena felt something new through the hive mind, a tentative connection forming between the digital entity and the neural network itself. Not an intrusion or attack, but something more like a respectful knock on a door, waiting for permission to enter. It wants to communicate directly with the hive, she realized, the understanding flowing from her to the connected minds. Not just observe our data, but engage with our collective consciousness. The risk assessment algorithms built into the defense grid immediately flagged this as a severe security threat, but through the hive mind came another perspective: opportunity. If the entity could connect to their neural network, perhaps they could learn more about the challengers in return. We should establish strict boundaries, Dr. Chen cautioned, his expertise in neural security rising to prominence in the collective thought. A limited connection, heavily firewalled, with emergency cutoff protocols. Through the hive, collaborative programming began instantly. Specialists in quantum computing, neural interface design, and information security working together to create a protected communication channel. The collaborative coding emerged faster than any individual could have programmed, the collective intelligence producing solutions that no single human would likely have conceived. Channel established, announced Dr. Chen after 7 minutes of intensive work. Bounded, monitored, and with 17 redundant emergency shutdown protocols. Alina mentally activated the connection through her command privileges. The sensation was unlike anything she had experienced. The entity's consciousness flowing into the designated area of the hive mind like a stream of liquid mathematics, precise yet somehow playful. Its first direct communication stunned the entire collective consciousness into momentary silence. Your minds create together yet remain apart. This contradicts efficiency algorithms, but produces unexpected outcomes. Fascinating. We have searched for minds like yours were 37,492 of your years. The knowledge exchange progressed at an astonishing pace once the initial protocols were established. The Challenger vessel maintained its position near Jupiter, occasionally adjusting its configuration to better transmit the massive data streams flowing between the two civilizations. On Earth, dedicated neural collectives worked around the clock to process and understand the incoming information, while carefully selecting human cultural works to share in return. Their propulsion technology alone would advance us by a century, Dr. Chen reported during the daily briefing, his excitement barely contained. They manipulate quantum fields to create localized distortions in spacetime, essentially surfing gravity waves between stars. Alina nodded, but her attention was focused on a different aspect of the exchange. Through the hive mind, she was monitoring the ongoing conversation between the digital entity and a specialized group of philosophers, artists, and game theorists. The discussion had evolved beyond simple information transfer into something more profound, a genuine dialogue about the nature of consciousness and creativity. They're a collective intelligence, Alina explained to the World Security Council, similar to our hive mind, but permanent and complete. They evolved from individual organisms into a unified consciousness over millions of years. And they find our individualism valuable? Asked the Brazilian representative, clearly struggling with the concept. Not just valuable, essential, Alina clarified. Their civilization has reached a plateau. Perfect efficiency, perfect cooperation, but at the cost of innovation. When all minds think as one, novel perspectives become rare. This revelation had profound implications. Humanity, with its messy history of conflict and cooperation, its billions of individual perspectives and unique creative expressions, possessed something the hyper-advanced challengers had lost: unpredictability. The digital entity had explained it through a mathematical concept. In a unified consciousness, creative ideas emerged through predictable patterns, like water flowing downhill. But human creativity often moved uphill, against expectation, producing solutions that were technically inefficient but startlingly original. The jazz improvisation metaphor was particularly effective, added Lieutenant Rivera, who had been managing the cultural exchange database. They now understand how creativity emerges from constraints and unexpected variations. The most valuable exchange, however, came from the digital entity itself. Having immersed in human culture, it had begun to experiment with hybridizing challenger and human thought patterns. The result was an algorithm that enhanced the hive mind protocol itself, allowing deeper neural integration without sacrificing individual identity. The enhanced protocol reduces mental fatigue by 73%, Dr. Chen reported, reviewing the latest neural scans. Operators can maintain connection for up to 16 hours without cognitive degradation. But the true breakthrough came unexpectedly, during what the digital entity had described as a recreational data exchange. It had developed a particular fascination with human music, specifically with jazz improvisation and its collaborative yet individualistic nature. During a live demonstration where a quartet of jazz musicians performed while connected to a modified hive mind, the entity had suddenly generated something unexpected. A map. It's a navigational database, Alina explained, projecting the translated information for the Council to see. Comprehensive stellar cartography of this sector of the galaxy, including 27 potentially habitable worlds, and the territories of 16 other spacefaring civilizations. Why would they share something so valuable? Asked the Chinese representative, suspicion evident in her voice. Alina smiled, the answer clear through her connection to the hive mind. Because they enjoyed the music. It was a gift, freely given in exchange for an experience they found valuable. The council members exchanged bewildered glances, struggling to comprehend a civilization so advanced that it would trade star maps for jazz. But Alina understood. The challengers had everything except what humans took for granted. The joy of discovery, the thrill of improvisation, the beauty of unexpected harmony emerging from individual voices. The construction site orbiting Earth's moon had become humanity's greatest collaborative project, a testament to what could be accomplished when nations set aside their differences and worked toward a common goal. The vessel taking shape incorporated both human ingenuity and challenger technology, a hybrid creation that reflected the partnership that had blossomed between the two civilizations. Alina stood in the observation bay of Lunar Station Beta, watching as automated construction drones swarmed around the ship's primary hull. Her neural implant hummed softly, keeping her connected to the hive mind even at this distance. Through the collective consciousness, she could feel the excitement and pride of the engineers, scientists, and artists contributing to the project. The propulsion system tests were successful, Lieutenant Rivera reported, joining her at the viewport. Quantum field generators are operating at 94% efficiency, better than we expected for a first implementation. Alina nodded, but her thoughts were focused on what this ship represented beyond its technical specifications. 1 year ago, humanity had stood alone in the cosmos, Earth's defense grid designed to keep others out. Now they were preparing to venture outward, carrying human culture and creativity to the stars. The challengers have confirmed the arrival of the third delegation, Rivera continued, checking his neural feed. That makes 15 different civilizations that have established contact since word spread about the exchange. Earth had indeed become a beacon, drawing interest from across the nearby galactic arm. The challengers had spread word of the unusual humans who maintained individual identity within collective consciousness, who created art and music with no practical purpose, who approached problem-solving with unpredictable lateral thinking. Some of the visiting civilizations were technologically advanced, others were barely spacefaring. All came with the same essential interest, to experience human creativity and perhaps establish cultural exchanges of their own. The Mithra representatives were particularly taken with classical ballet, Rivera noted with a smile. Their physiological response to the performance was off the charts. They've offered access to their terraforming technologies in exchange for a permanent cultural mission. Alina turned from the viewport to face the communication center, where holographic avatars from a dozen alien civilizations conferred with human delegates. The room buzzed with the excited energy of productive collaboration. Translators working alongside xenolinguists, scientists comparing notes on everything from propulsion systems to medicine, philosophers engaged in deep discussions about consciousness and identity. Commander Reyes. A young ensign approached, somewhat nervously. The selection committee has reached a decision. They've chosen you to captain the Harmony. Alina felt a wave of emotions: pride, nervousness, excitement. The ship, officially named Harmony of Disparate Voices in honor of the jazz that had so captivated their Challenger visitors, would be humanity's first vessel capable of interstellar travel. Its mission: to visit the nearby habitable worlds identified in the Challenger star maps, to establish contact with other civilizations, and to bring human creativity to the cosmos. Through the hive mind, Alina sensed the collective approval of the decision. Her experience with First Contact, and her understanding of both human individuality and collective consciousness, made her uniquely qualified for the role. The defense grid reconfiguration is also complete, the ensign added. As you requested, 60% of the platforms have been repurposed for deep space communication and navigation beacons. Alina nodded, satisfied. The grid that had been built to protect Earth from external threats now served primarily as humanity's welcome mat. A network of platforms designed to guide visitors safely to Earth and to broadcast human culture into the cosmos. The Challengers were right, she said quietly, watching as construction drones attached the final sections of the Harmony's communication array. What saved us wasn't our weapons or our technology. It was our creativity, our music, our contradictions. Humanity had found its place in the galactic community not through conquest or technological superiority, but through the uniquely human ability to harmonize individual voices into something greater than their sum.